Under a heavy storm, lightning strikes a forest filled with fallen warriors while a lone survivor stands among the bodies. Coughing up blood, the wounded warrior counts 64 enemies that he has already taken down on his own. Suddenly, a mysterious man appears, clapping his hands while praising the hero for surviving such a brutal beating. Glaring at his opponent, the young man stays silent as the dark forces slowly surround him in the muddy grass. With a manic laugh, the villain mocks his special sword technique and wonders if it can save him from imminent death. Even with deep injuries, the hero claims they know nothing, which the arrogant leader considers a cheap bluff. Multiple masked assassins jump from above with sharp blades to finish off the weakened warrior once and for all. Unleashing a massive slash, the protagonist easily defeats the new attackers and updates his count to 67. After wiping out half of the enemy elites, the hero listens as the villain welcomes the massive sacrifice. Descending from the stormy sky, a powerful fighter finally lands right in front of the exhausted hero. Bringing along a group of elite soldiers, the evil leader prepares to put an end to this long and tiring battle. With a wicked smile, he points out that the heavily injured warrior can no longer use his legendary martial arts. Tired of the talking, the protagonist simply tells them all to attack together so he can get this over with quickly. Infuriated by this immense disrespect, the villain screams the hero's name as his anger completely boils over. Charging forward with a fast leap, the commander aims a deadly strike while mocking his opponent's final moments. Before his blade can even connect, a sudden counterattack slashes right through the arrogant leader's face. The wounded warrior coldly wonders if his enemy actually knew anything about the legendary sword style he used. As lightning flashes, the boss falls dead to the wet ground, bringing the total victim count to 68. Leaving a trail of blood behind him, the young warrior slowly drags his body away to find a safe place to rest. Weakly holding his bleeding side, the warrior can barely keep his balance. Falling face first onto the dirt path, his body finally gives out from the intense exhaustion. While staring at the sky, he realizes that fighting 120 enemies was simply too much. With his vision fading, he silently apologizes to a girl named Young Mei for breaking his promise. Gripping a secret book tightly against his chest, the young man prepares himself for the very end. His only real regret is leaving without making his enemies feel any true remorse for what they did. Lying helpless in the middle of a quiet forest path, a long trail of blood marks his final steps. Suddenly, a small purple flower appears in his field of vision as someone approaches his body. Standing right beside him is a young boy who looks completely shocked by the bloody scene. Looking up at the child, the wounded fighter weakly asks what kind of grass he is holding. He warns the kid never to eat that plant because its strong numbing poison will end his life. The boy stands frozen in absolute silence while the cold wind blows leaves through the dark night. The kid keeps digging the dirt while the dying warrior surprisingly chews on the poisonous plant. Gulping in fear, the boy watches the man eat the herb before the warrior asks for his name. Looking down with a quiet voice, the young boy reveals that his name is Iojasio. Realizing how calm the kid is about death, the fighter guesses the boy has already buried his parents. Holding out his legendary manual, the dying master tells him to stop digging and take the book. Rejecting the offer immediately, the boy says he does not want it and asks for food instead. He realistically points out that strong masters just end up dying a painful death anyway. Hearing these surprisingly wise words, the old warrior cannot help but burst into loud laughter. He fully agrees that hiding your true strength is the only way to survive in this harsh world. The young boy simply stares back at him with a confused look on his face. Despite his heavy wounds, the brave warrior still tries his best to stay conscious. The young boy stands near his shallow pit while observing the mysterious stranger with a calm look. Stepping forward, Softball Kid uses all his strength to support the massive body of the bleeding man. Together they slowly walk away from the battleground and pass beneath the giant forest trees. Carrying the giant fighter on his back is extremely difficult because of the many arrows sticking out. Patting his shoulder, the master remarks that the skinny kid actually possesses a surprisingly strong physique. He also notices how incredibly bright the child's eyes look despite living such a difficult life. Smiling warmly, the warrior proposes that the young boy should learn his secrets to become a hidden master. The kid looks completely bored and instantly rejects the offer because he has no interest in martial arts. He explains that he is only staying because the dying man reminds him of his father who abandoned him. Hearing this sad story makes the old warrior silent as he looks down at his new little companion. Reaching out with a bloody bandaged hand, the hero gently asks the young boy to come a bit closer. Pulling him into a tight hug, the master mentions that the boy reminds him of his own beloved daughter. While his warm blood drips, the warrior whispers that he wishes the child could have been his real son. Feeling the warm embrace of the dying hero, the lonely boy is suddenly reminded of his father's touch. Feeling the boy hold him, the dying warrior suddenly goes completely limp and falls right over. The strong fighter hits the dirt dead, leaving the young kid completely frozen with fear. Standing over the lifeless body, the boy looks down at the mysterious manual left behind. 15 years pass in the blink of an eye, and the young boy is now a grown man practicing his sword skills. He spent all his time training tirelessly with the manual left behind by the deceased warrior. Unfortunately, most of the advanced techniques in the secret guide were way too difficult to grasp. To make it work, he simply skipped those complicated moves and changed the style to match his own body. Since he also needed to learn internal energy, he decided to look for answers in a nearby tavern. After threatening an old drunkard, he learned a breathing trick only to find out it was for grandpas. This weird training eventually leads to his sword snapping in half, and he realizes he is still a novice. Even with a broken blade, the young man keeps polishing the basic moves he actually understands. He eventually masters a flashy technique that makes him look like an absolute beast when sheathing his sword. Since the style changed so much, he decides to call his modified version the Tenfold Soul Training Sword. Drawing his sword, the hero unleashes a swift strike at a massive tree to test his newly modified style. Believing his power is absolutely trash, he wonders if raising his arm more would make him look cooler. Giving up on his pose, the young warrior simply starts thinking about having a warm bowl of rice soup instead. Without even realizing it, his single casual slash has sliced the giant tree completely in half behind him. Later, we see his boots stepping onto a grand red carpet while he reflects on what a true master really is. Ordinary people rarely meet such experts because a single master has the power to easily shake entire nations. Yet those same legendary fighters are currently lining up just to clear a path for him to walk through. Every single expert bows their head in deep respect as the young man calmly strolls through the massive hall. Despite looking like an absolute beast, the young man is actually still a complete novice. He decides to visit Fort Manryong to sign up for a job because his lack of skills is a blessing in disguise. The busy registrar asks for his name, but the young warrior just stares back with a totally blank expression. Grabbing the ink brush, he knows that landing this job means he will not have to beg for food anymore. With a steady hand, he slowly writes down his actual name on the official paper. The registrar gets shocked because normal warriors are usually illiterate, and he wonders if the boy is from some famous sect. Smiling secretly, the hero reveals that those letters and his fake sword style are the only things he actually knows how to write. The old man rubs his chin and admits that he has never heard of such a strange martial arts style before. The old man laughs and says there is no problem at all with his registration. He then politely instructs the newcomer to head over to Blue Room 19. The young warrior is secretly thrilled because he can finally eat regular meals without any worries. This Blue Room is the perfect middle ground for average people who are not total masters. Walking down the hall, he realizes this place is actually super comfortable to live in. His main plan is to just eat his fill and escape before the sparring matches even begin. Catching a delicious scent in the air, he notices that the food smells incredible. Entering the dining area, he spots some fellow warriors sharing a table in the corner. The other men immediately glare at him with very aggressive expressions on their faces. He sighs because these troublesome guys look like they will only cause him a giant headache. The guide cheerfully gestures for him to enter and make himself comfortable. Sitting down at the table, he keeps a close watch on his new companions while his drink is poured. One of the tough fighters leans in closely to ask for his actual name. Smiling calmly, the hero introduces himself as Io Jaseo to keep his identity hidden. Knowing he is just a beginner, the young warrior makes sure not to let any of his weakness show on his face. Placing his empty cup back on the table, the muscular fighter nods slowly, as if he is carefully judging the newcomer. The spiked hair guy introduces himself as Sim Gil and points to his bald friend who is named Sogu Chi. Before drinking from his cup, the bald warrior suddenly pauses and prepares to ask a very important question. Looking closely at the hero, he directly asks which martial arts sect the young man belongs to. The protagonist quickly lies by claiming he is just a wanderer who learned some basic family sword techniques. Sipping his drink, the bald fighter proudly states that they actually come from the famous region of Chang'an. Recognizing the area, the hero immediately asks if they belong to the legendary Zhongnam sect to show off his knowledge. Seeing the two men look incredibly pleased by his guess, the protagonist smiles because his plan is working perfectly. He decides to gain their absolute trust by mentioning a highly respected master from their specific hometown. The young man starts telling a dramatic story about how their famous clan defeated a powerful demon in battle. He praises their Grand Master with an exaggerated expression to make his fake admiration sound extremely convincing. Hearing their master praised so highly, the spiked hair warrior laughs loudly and claps his hands in absolute joy. The bald fighter is so happy that he immediately offers to buy more drinks just to hear the rest of the epic story. Laughing together like old buddies, the young man realizes that making friends is actually the easiest thing in the world. The young man smiles and decides that keeping a friendly attitude is key to surviving here without any drama. Stepping outside, the hero enjoys the beautiful sunny weather while walking through the busy courtyard of the fortress. Looking around, his eyes widen as he realizes just how massive and wealthy this entire place actually is. He spots a huge sparring arena where fighters are training hard to prepare for their upcoming matches. A bright grin appears on his face when he realizes he can basically get free food and lodging for an entire month. While observing several highly skilled fighters walk past him, he decides that their business is none of his concern. Whistling a happy tune, the young man starts dreaming about having a delicious bowl of hot meat soup for his lunch. A sudden gust of wind blows some leaves around, and he pauses because he catches a very pleasant fragrance in the air. Standing right there, a young red-haired woman glares at him and demands to know why he entered her private residence. Screaming internally, the protagonist quickly puts on a polite smile and apologizes for his massive mistake. He politely explains that he wandered in by mistake and tries to make a quick exit while she just stares back silently. Suddenly, she calls out to him and asks for his name, which immediately makes the young man panic. Reflecting on his 25 years of life, he knows getting involved with this girl is a terrible idea. She sneaks up right behind him and asks if he is one of the strong masters applying for the fort. He admits that he is moderately strong, so she starts clapping her hands with pure joy. The hero pretends to listen politely while secretly planning a way to slip away when she is not looking. His jaw drops when she suddenly asks him to spar because fighting her is the last thing he wants to do. Trying to back away, his foot accidentally hits a small rock and he ends up in a perfect combat stance just to stay balanced. Seeing his cool pose, the excited girl thinks he is a brave warrior ready to accept her challenge. The protagonist waves his hands frantically to explain the massive misunderstanding and avoid any trouble. Ignoring his words, she unleashes a burst of energy and charges forward to strike first. The protagonist is shocked to feel a massive wave of real internal energy coming right from her hand. Before he can even react, the fiery girl lands a direct palm strike straight onto his chest. Pain surges through his body, and the young man desperately fights to keep himself from passing out. The pure force of her powerful attack slides him back several feet across the stone courtyard. Clutching his aching chest, he realizes that his entire reserve of energy has been completely drained by this single hit. Meanwhile, the red-haired fighter looks at him with a completely dumbfounded expression on her face. She is absolutely amazed because nobody has ever taken her strongest strike directly and remained standing. Staring at his calm face, she is now completely convinced that the young man is actually a legendary master. Standing silently with his back turned, the hero desperately plans to sneak away before he collapses on the ground. Suddenly, his body reaches its absolute limit and a massive nosebleed begins pouring down his face. Seeing this, the girl celebrates because she believes her secret martial arts style actually worked on a master. Quickly covering his nose, he decides to praise her incredible strength just to keep her from attacking him again. To help him out, she kindly reaches into her pocket and offers him a big piece of cotton to stop the bleeding. Smiling proudly, the girl explains that her unique palm style is specifically designed to make the opponent nosebleed. Hearing this ridiculous explanation, the young man freaks out because he realizes he just crossed paths with a total psycho. She keeps studying his face and assumes he only took a minor hit since he managed to survive her ultimate strike. Clapping her hands with excitement, she suddenly notices the weapon on his waist and realizes he is actually a swordsman. Still wiping his nose, the poor boy can only stand there in complete silence while praying for a quick escape. With a crazy look in her eyes, she happily suggests going to grab her blade so they can have a proper sword duel next. Holding his forehead, the exhausted warrior feels another massive headache coming on after hearing her insane proposal. Screaming internally, the protagonist realizes that he genuinely messed with the absolute worst person in the fortress. Sitting alone inside the room, the young warrior carefully wipes his shiny blade to make himself look like a real master. Watching him clean the weapon with so much respect, his two new friends are instantly amazed by his professional skills. He secretly smiles because his perfect hand movements actually came from 10 years of cleaning weapons at different local inns. Standing up, he remembers the advice from the old warrior, who told him to stay a low-tier fighter to live a long life. Since he is indeed very weak, the protagonist decides to focus entirely on making his moves look extremely cool instead. Sheathing his sword with absolute style is his ultimate secret trick to survive among the dangerous experts of this world. The display completely fools the two companions who claim that he and his sword have truly become a single powerful force. Playing along with the compliment, the young man simply smiles and says that the sword has indeed become a part of his body. Loud clashing sounds echo outside while a worried warrior runs in to report that people are fighting. The bald fighter suggests going outside to watch the battle, but the hero really does not care about low-tier trouble. Everything changes when they hear the names of the two famous fighters, which instantly shocks the young warrior. A massive crowd of onlookers gathers in the courtyard to witness the highly anticipated duel between the experts. The muscular man with the eye patch is revealed to be a deadly mercenary who fights with a massive chained blade. His handsome opponent quickly dashes forward with an incredibly fast stance while his loyal fangirls cheer him on. The agile swordsman unleashes a rapid attack that clashes heavily against the giant rusty cleaver of his enemy. The brutal battle continues in the crowded courtyard as the heavy axe swings with massive force. Observing the move, Sim Gyol predicts that the agile swordsman will win since his technique is far superior. The main character disagrees and points out that the axe warrior actually has a huge advantage here. He calmly explains that stamina is the only thing that truly matters when weak fighters duel each other. Sure enough, the swordsman quickly grows extremely tired and gets violently pushed back by the heavy weapon. Sim Gyol is completely shocked by this spot-on prediction and praises the young man for his sharp eyes. The companion then asks how he could possibly know the result, but the hero just smiles mysteriously. Suddenly, the red-haired girl appears in the crowd and loudly points at the young warrior as a hero. Feeling another massive headache, the young man listens as she points out his lack of pride in this tournament. She proudly explains that her unique palm attack usually leaves everyone bedridden for many days. To make a quick escape, the hero flatters her skills and tells her she will become famous with more training. Suddenly, the bald companion screams in shock as the intense duel in the courtyard reaches its climax. The muscular mercenary unleashes a brutal strike while his exhausted opponent barely blocks the heavy weapon. With both warriors refusing to back down, the worried friends wonder if someone will step in to stop the fight. The duel gets bloodier as the spectators realize nobody will stop the fight unless someone actually dies. With their rage boiling over, both fighters decide to unleash their final moves to end each other once and for all. Meanwhile, the protagonist gets cornered by the persistent red-haired girl who happily demands a proper sword match. Out of nowhere, a mysterious hooded assassin leaps out and launches a lethal projectile straight at them. Misunderstanding the danger, the excited girl thinks the boy is testing her and happily readies her own weapon. The throwing knife clashes heavily against her blade, carrying a massive amount of powerful internal energy. The sheer force of the impact knocks her completely off balance while the young warrior watches in absolute panic. The dangerous weapon is deflected, and the two angry fighters look completely stunned by the sudden disruption. In the middle of the chaos, the young hero leaps into the arena to stop the fighters from killing each other. The protagonist actually looks totally shocked because he did not even mean to block their heavy attacks. Seeing him holding back two powerful experts at the same time, the spectators cheer for his massive bravery. Nearby, the hidden assassin quickly runs away after his secret sneak attack gets completely ruined. Blue energy starts flowing through the weapons, and the hero feels their immense power rushing into his body. His hand begins to shake violently as the angry mercenary prepares to unleash his remaining inner strength. Screaming in panic, the young hero begs them to stop, but the stubborn fighters just push their energy to the absolute limit. Before he can escape, a massive pillar of blue light erupts from their clash and shoots directly into the sky. The surrounding crowd watches in absolute awe, believing that the protagonist is suppressing them with legendary sword chi. However, the sheer pressure becomes too much to handle, and a sudden explosion sends all three of them flying away. During the confusion, the sneaky hooded assassin launches another red projectile, targeting the distracted red-haired girl. Gasping in surprise, the young lady barely manages to deflect the incoming threat using her sword at the very last second. The weapon embeds itself deep into a nearby wooden pillar, leaving the entire crowd of warriors completely speechless. The two friends stand over the unconscious hero in absolute shock, believing that he is a legendary master of sword chi. The protagonist slowly opens his eyes while realizing that his weak body actually fainted during the giant explosion. Knowing his excuse of having a bad stomachache will not work, he decides that escaping right away is his best option. Seeing him wake up, the bald companion praises him for heroically jumping into the arena to save the two fighters. The young warrior starts sweating as he remembers how his sudden burst of emotions dragged him into this mess. The bald friend leans in close to whisper that the entire fortress is currently talking about his amazing actions. He also adds that the young man saved the Lord's daughter, which makes the hero wonder who she even is. Their conversation is suddenly interrupted when a loud knocking sound echoes from the main door of the room. The red-haired girl suddenly bursts through the door to greet her hero, but her father quickly scolds her for being rude. The man introduces himself as the Lord of the Fort and the protagonist gets shocked to learn that she is his daughter. The hero acts extremely humble while realizing that this is actually a golden opportunity for his future. He secretly smiles as he starts thinking of valuable items he could easily get and sell for a high price. When the leader asks if he wants some cash, the protagonist instantly rejects it to make himself look completely noble. The lord gets highly impressed and asks if he wants to become an official warrior instead of taking money. The leader then offers him a job as a training instructor, but the boy claims he still has too much to learn. The fortress leader offers him a high-paying job as a bodyguard, while his bald friend proudly admits to spreading the rumors. Hearing this, the young warrior completely panics, because being known as a master will only attract dangerous thugs. He decides to quickly ask for a special pill to boost his energy so he can escape before getting exposed. The protagonist politely rejects the bodyguard offer and asks if he can receive a different kind of reward. He nervously asks the leader for a small medicinal elixir to help with his martial arts training. The lord is totally shocked by the request since strong swordsmen usually despise using elixirs to power up. Suddenly, the entire room falls completely silent as his companions stare at him with deeply suspicious eyes. Sweating profusely, the young man quickly tries to change the subject by bringing up the wounded fighters instead. The hero passionately suggests using the precious medicine to treat the injured combatants instead of taking it himself. Dramatically gesturing, the young man adds that doing this will make the entire fortress look absolutely amazing. Tears of absolute regret fill his eyes as the protagonist realizes he just threw away his only prize. Deeply touched by this noble gesture, the fortress leader laughs heartily and promises to heal the injured men. Realizing he just played himself, the poor boy can only stand there in silent defeat as his plans fall apart. Refusing to let him go empty-handed, the generous lord happily decides to prepare an even better surprise. With a sneaky smile, the leader warns him that declining this next gift would be a massive insult. While the protagonist sweats in absolute panic, the proud lord slowly reaches inside his robe for the secret item. The lord pulls out a blood-soaked needle, and the young man instantly recognizes it as a secret weapon. This special needle requires massive internal energy to activate and can easily pierce through a master's defenses. Since the clan backing the fortress has no reason to attack the daughter, the lord suspects the hero was the real target. Denying everything, the protagonist worries that getting involved in this mess will only give him a massive headache. Pretending to feel extremely dizzy, the young warrior convinces the group to finally leave him alone to rest. Before leaving, the cheerful daughter reminds him that his official matches are scheduled to begin the very next day. Slumping onto his bed, the poor boy panics when he realizes he has to fight other real warriors in the morning. Early in the morning, the young man decides to pack his sword and run away before the deadly matches begin. His plan gets instantly ruined when his bald companion wakes up and praises his incredible dedication to training. Pretending to be extremely excited, the hero heads over to the bulletin board to check the official match schedule. The young man is absolutely thrilled to see that his name is not listed for the first 2 days of the event. His joy quickly turns into absolute shock when he spots the name of the heavily injured warrior on the board. The surrounding crowd wonders if the wounded fighter will even survive, and the hero silently prays the man withdraws. The hero worries the fighter might lose his life, but a sudden loud gong echoes through the courtyard for an announcement. Hearing that everyone gets 2 taels of silver just for participating, the young man quickly calculates all the food he can buy. His plan is to wait for his match to start and immediately forfeit so he can grab the cash and run. Suddenly, the red-haired girl sneaks up behind him and cheerfully calls him by a ridiculous new nickname. Holding his head in complete distress, the protagonist tries to walk away but notices her footsteps right behind him. Turning around, he asks why she is following him, but the playful girl pretends she is just walking the same way. Even though she warns him to stop, the stubborn warrior runs ahead because she makes his life way too complicated. His escape comes to a sudden halt when he accidentally bumps into a massive figure standing right in his path. The protagonist gasps in surprise when he turns around and realizes he just bumped into a tall, elegant woman. He immediately tries to apologize for entering the restricted area while silently cursing his terrible luck. Looking up at her face, the young man is completely stunned by how unbelievably beautiful the stranger actually is. The playful red-haired girl suddenly pops up behind her master and teases the boy for staring so intensely. The cold master warns him that entering is easy, but leaving her private grounds is a completely different story. She introduces herself as Du Yan and explains that she is the official martial arts instructor of the young lady. The young warrior quickly bows his head and claims that anyone would have stepped in to save the girl that day. Even though he saved her student, Secret's instructor firmly grips her weapon and prepares to test his skills. The instructor refuses to let him go while her student explains that letting him slide would invite a crowd of suitors. A nearby crowd gathers to gossip about the fight and mentions the instructor belongs to the legendary Emi sect. Hearing about her master-level sword style makes the young man realize he needs to pull off a massive bluff to survive. Stomping his foot down, the hero dramatically declares that his chivalrous nature prevents him from ever fighting a woman. While the crowd highly praises his noble choice, the beautiful master only looks extremely annoyed by his fake attitude. Ignoring his speech completely, the cold woman slowly starts drawing her sharp weapon to begin the duel anyway. Terrified of getting sliced, the young man immediately starts screaming that he has absolutely no romantic interest in her. To prove his absolute honesty, the terrified boy dramatically threatens to chop off his own leg right there. The beautiful instructor stares coldly at his leg, so he quickly clutches his chest and swears he has no feelings for her. Gripping the hilt of her sharp weapon, the lady calmly asks if his desperate words are actually sincere. Without warning, she unleashes a super-fast sword strike that barely misses the young man and leaves him frozen in fear. Feeling relieved by his quick explanation, the powerful woman calmly puts her weapon away while the hero stands sweating. She sheathes her blade completely and decides to trust his words for now since he seems totally honest. The protagonist screams internally about almost dying, but secretly thinks that getting beaten by a beauty is not too bad. Turning around, the graceful master suggests they save their epic match for the official tournament instead. As the instructor walks away, the young warrior keeps dreaming about eating warm soup and resting in a cozy bed. He decides that survival is his top priority and prepares to sneak away from the fortress as fast as possible. Before he can even take a step, some nearby warriors start loudly praising him for being a true gentleman. Feeling extremely annoyed by the unwanted attention, the hero secretly blames his red-haired companion for this curse. While walking alone through the courtyard, he wonders if he should just return to the quiet mountains to train in peace. Suddenly, he spots his spiked-hair companion training incredibly hard with a heavy sword early in the morning. Observing the sloppy stance, the protagonist immediately notices that the fighter is completely out of sync. Dropping his weapon, the companion quickly spots the hero and asks where he has been wandering all morning. After walking around the courtyard, the hero listens as his friend nervously asks him for some martial arts advice. The protagonist is quite surprised by this request, but tries to decline by saying he only knows basic sword moves. Desperate for help, the fighter begs for a single hint and complains that pushing his physical body is not working. Slamming his heavy weapon on the ground, the tired warrior admits that he simply cannot make any real progress. Pointing out his major flaws, the hero calmly explains why his current training methods are completely wrong. The fighter gets incredibly shocked when the young man correctly guesses that he learned everything from a cheap manual. Realizing his companion lied about his background, the protagonist secretly smiles and promises to keep his secret safe. The companion expresses his deep gratitude while the hero remembers how hard it is to learn moves from cheap books. The protagonist advises him to forget about strict footwork and just let the steps naturally follow the heavy blade. Hearing these wise words makes the fighter realize he was focusing way too much on raw physical strength. Swinging his massive weapon with perfect ease, he suddenly unleashes an incredibly smooth and powerful strike. Feeling this incredible surge of power, the fighter laughs with joy while his bald friend gasps in complete shock. The grateful warrior happily grabs the protagonist and tells everyone that he just received some master-level guidance. The bald companion loudly declares this a miraculous moment which instantly grabs the attention of nearby fighters. Watching the scene, the nearby warriors feel incredibly jealous and wish they could get some tips from the young man too. Things get worse when the bald companion starts screaming for lessons as well, forcing the protagonist to quickly run away. The tournament matches finally begin on the wooden stage, and the spiked hair warrior shows off his newly improved power. Observing the intense duel from the sidelines, the protagonist gets extremely nervous about his own upcoming turn to fight. He asks some nearby fighters about the rankings and learns how the different official levels work inside the massive fort. With one final move, the companion secures a clean victory and proudly raises his weapon to celebrate with the crowd. Since this is not a major match, the hero realizes he can easily forfeit and escape without attracting any attention. The winner happily tells his friend that this success is entirely due to his help, but the boy only gives a fake smile. The young warrior realizes it is finally his turn and plans to forfeit immediately so he can leave the place for good. Suddenly, the proud swordsman he helped heal approaches him to express his deep gratitude for the amazing medicine. The fighter also mentions learning a great deal from the short sword move the protagonist showed him earlier. The grateful warrior bows deeply and loudly begs the hero to grant him another legendary sparring match. Hearing this request, the surrounding crowd gets incredibly hyped that such a proud fighter is bowing to him. The poor protagonist feels extremely stressed because his plans of keeping a low profile are completely ruined. Things get even worse when his bald friend starts loudly chanting his name to hype up the entire courtyard. With no other option left, the young man slowly takes his first steps up the wooden stairs to begin the duel. Stepping onto the crowded wooden stage, the young man realizes that a head-on fight is now his only real choice. His opponent quickly draws his sharp blade and takes a very stylish combat stance in front of the giant crowd. Recognizing the incredible skill of his opponent, the protagonist tries his best to read those master-level movements. Charging forward with insane speed, the grateful warrior begs the hero to show off his legendary skills. Sweating from the intense pressure, the protagonist wonders if a novice like him can actually react to this attack. Closing his eyes, the young man focuses entirely on the sound of the footsteps and tries to predict a strike from the left. Although the enemy suddenly shifts to the right, the hero is absolutely shocked to find that he can easily track the movement. Easily tracking the speedy attack, the young man leaves his opponent wondering if his moves were actually predicted. Watching from the sidelines, the crowd believes the hero is helpless because the enemy is moving too fast. While the crowd doubts his skills, the protagonist realizes that those fast movements are actually extremely clear to him. Suddenly his eyes widen when he notices the hooded assassin who might be seeking some quick revenge. Believing the hero is completely distracted, the speedy fighter charges in to land a decisive hit. At the exact same time, the hidden killer prepares another deadly tool to cause massive chaos. The young man gets startled as he realizes that a real assassin is indeed targeting him during this intense match. Moving his feet quickly, the opponent gets shocked when the hero instantly reacts without even turning his head around. The swordsman completely misses his target and wonders if the calm protagonist is just openly mocking his skills. Charging forward with absolute speed, the furious rival aims to prove that nobody can match his swift movements. Slipping right past his opponent, the protagonist notices a look of pure rage on the face of the speedy fighter. While the wind blows dust across the stage, the hero keeps looking around to find the location of the hidden killer. Suddenly, a dangerous sharp weapon flies through the air, heading straight toward the stage to cause absolute chaos. Watching the projectile fly, the hero realizes a real assassin is indeed targeting him during the duel. His opponent is completely confused when the young warrior suddenly turns around to prepare a cool sword draw stance. Surprisingly, the flying weapon looks incredibly slow to his eyes as it floats through the air. Feeling the immediate danger, the young man quickly prepares to deflect the threat with a fast movement. Sparks fly when his blade hits the projectile, and he suddenly remembers going through a similar situation before. His opponent watches in absolute awe, believing that the young man is actually gathering legendary sword chi. Feeling extremely hyped by this amazing display, the rival charges forward to fight with his ultimate strength. In a flash of sparks, the young warrior deflects the projectile and accidentally knocks his opponent back with a heavy strike. Standing in complete disbelief, the shocked crowd watches as the speedy swordsman falls flat on his back onto the wooden stage. Looking down at his trembling hand, the protagonist tries to understand how his basic movements blocked a high-level attack. Feeling a sudden warm sensation, the hero realizes his nose is bleeding again after absorbing such a massive wave of energy. While the young man stands confused, the entire arena erupts in loud cheers as his companions celebrate this epic victory. An excited spectator loudly explains that the hero intentionally held back his sword chi to avoid hurting his rival. Knowing it is all a giant misunderstanding, the young man simply smiles because surviving this match is all that matters. The announcer bangs a gong to share some massive news about the upcoming tournament matches. Walking away from the crowd, the protagonist flips his participation coins while complaining about being used. The young man stops in his tracks when he realizes he is completely surrounded by dangerous lunatics. A creepy laugh echoes from behind as a mean-looking warrior approaches the hero with a weird smirk. The rude stranger calls him a fraud and reminds him of a past match where he supposedly got beaten up. Leaning in extremely close, the bully threatens to break his fingers again to fix his bad attitude. Drawing his weapon with a sharp sound, a mean warrior points his blade right at the young hero. The bully vows to expose his opponent, while the surrounding crowd starts whispering that the stranger has lost his mind. Wearing a wicked grin, the thug continues to mock him as the protagonist silently prepares to defend himself. Recognizing that the enemy is barely above low tier, the hero still remembers getting beaten up by him 2 months ago. Tears of rage almost show when he remembers his broken fingers and wonders how to finally get his sweet revenge. The arrogant bully claims that defeating a master will boost his fame and warns that this fight will be much worse. Swinging his sword with flashy movements, the villain gets into a stance while the young warrior stands perfectly still. Leaning forward with a creepy smile, the fighter asks if the hero is simply frozen in fear. Sudden pain shoots through the protagonist as he realizes his body is heavily damaged from taking too many strong attacks. Watching him struggle, the arrogant bully laughs and mocks him for being a weak, low-tier fighter who likes to show off. The surrounding crowd gets angry at these insults, but the bully simply snaps back that weaklings always protect each other. Hearing this, the bald companion gets furious and demands to know if the bully is looking down on his strength as well. Terrified of the bald companion, the bully points at the hero and says he was only talking about that fake master instead. The bald companion refuses to listen and screams that the hero only calls himself weak because of his humble personality. With a sudden swing, the angry bald warrior punches the bully right in the face and sends him flying across the pavement. Charging forward, the furious companion vows to teach the rude fighter a painful lesson for insulting his legendary friend. The angry bald companion continues to beat up the bully while screaming about the hardships of being a low-tier warrior. Taking advantage of the chaotic fight, the young hero quietly sneaks back to his room to pack up his belongings. Holding the blood-stained manual in his hands, he looks down at the cover and remembers the old warrior who gave it to him. In a brief flashback, the dying master had praised the boy's amazing talent and claimed he could become the best under heaven. Returning to the present, the protagonist calls him a liar, since he almost lost his life during the sparring matches today. Tying his small bag tightly, the young man prepares to escape the peaceful-looking fortress to finally find some peace. His secret escape is suddenly interrupted when a loud voice screams a ridiculous nickname right outside his door. Sliding the door open, the playful red-haired girl calls out to him before he quickly slams the door on her hand. Entering his room anyway, she prepares a giant feast with delicious meat and wine to celebrate his first big victory. Feeling a bit suspicious, the young man decides to take just one quick sip of the wine before planning his escape. Dizziness suddenly takes over his entire body as he realizes this crazy girl actually spiked his drink with something. Passing out instantly, the poor hero has no idea that she gave him a strong sleeping medicine to help him rest. Waking up much later, the young warrior spots the moon outside and panics because he slept through his entire match. Waking up from his deep slumber, the young man is surprised when his bald friend invites him to have a quick drink. Clenching his fist, the hero realizes he is bursting with energy but knows there is absolutely no time for him to relax. Looking outside, the warrior notices tight security guards and worries about facing a terrifying opponent the next day. He visualizes the brutal mercenary named Poison Wolf Yibu and wonders if he can survive such a terrifying encounter. Sneaking out of his room under the dark night sky, the protagonist carefully walks through the quiet fortress to explore the area. Stepping onto the wooden stage, the boy observes the heavy damage and desperately searches for a perfect excuse to forfeit. Spotting a sharp metal nail sticking out of the floorboards, a clever idea quickly comes to his mind. He starts planning how to exploit the dusty arena conditions to avoid fighting that giant monster the next morning. The young man plans to lure his giant opponent onto a sharp nail during their fight to pierce his foot. Sitting under the bright moon, he quickly regrets his cheap tricks and wonders what he is doing with his life. Tears fill his eyes as the hero wishes he could just abandon everything to become a peaceful farmer instead. Suddenly losing his footing, the young man accidentally smashes a wooden railing and crushes a solid stone step. Staring at the broken rocks, the warrior sighs because the overall maintenance of this arena is absolutely terrible. He throws his hands up in absolute despair while wondering if he actually has to hammer a nail into his enemy himself. Without even realizing it, his incredible strength has left giant cracks all over the solid concrete path below him. The next morning finally arrives and the young warrior slowly opens his eyes while groaning in his bed. His bald companion suddenly rushes inside the room and urges him to get up because the tournament is already halfway over. Sitting up in a cold sweat, the hero remembers a terrible nightmare where a deadly mercenary sliced him to pieces 30 times. As his feet touch the floorboards, he is surprised to find his entire body feeling incredibly light and full of energy. Walking out into the sunny courtyard, he gets startled when a massive crowd of people suddenly begins cheering his name. The protagonist quickly realizes that the greedy leaders of the fortress are using his fake fame to recruit more fighters. Suddenly, a rude warrior with a bandaged face blocks his path and slams a rusty blade into the stone pavement. The giant opponent politely greets the young hero and thanks him for the amazing medicine before promising a serious match. To avoid a long and dangerous fight, the clever protagonist quickly proposes settling the entire duel in just one single move. He even claims that he will gladly accept absolute defeat if he fails to defeat his opponent with that single strike. Highly respected by this proposal, the muscular fighter agrees to unleash his most powerful ultimate technique right away. The young man celebrates internally, because surviving just one attack is much easier than fighting a whole duel. Soon the loud tournament gong echoes through the windy arena as both fighters step onto the wooden stage. Staring deeply into each other's eyes, both warriors focus their minds as the surrounding crowd watches in silent tension. Ready to begin the final clash, the massive mercenary prepares his giant weapon and commands his opponent to draw his blade. The hero confidently tells his opponent to attack while secretly planning to use his previous trick to survive the duel. He visualizes kicking up a massive cloud of dust to blind the giant fighter and strike him easily from behind. The muscular mercenary charges forward with incredible speed while swinging his heavy chained weapons through the air. Focusing his mind, the young man draws all his remaining internal energy and directs it straight down to his legs. Waiting for the perfect moment, the protagonist stomps his foot down to unleash his secret smokescreen technique. Shock washes over his face when he realizes the wooden stage is completely clean, and there is absolutely no dust. Slipping on the solid floorboards, the young man panics because this situation is completely different from yesterday. Seizing the golden opportunity, the massive mercenary swings his giant chained blade with deadly force to end the duel. Leaping high into the air, the young man barely avoids getting crushed by the massive weapon. Meanwhile, a spectator proudly reveals that they cleared all the dangerous nails from the stage earlier that morning. The sneaky rival laughs because he reinforced the entire floor to completely ruin the hero's cheap plans. Swinging his giant chained blades, the massive mercenary demands to know why his opponent refuses to draw his weapon. Sweating from the intense pressure, the young warrior seriously considers quitting the match right then and there. Suddenly, a strange and extremely refreshing sensation begins to flow directly through the soles of his feet. He wonders if that crazy red-haired girl actually fed him some kind of legendary medicine to boost his strength. Preparing his special strike, the hero aims to lose the fight gracefully while his opponent charges with full power. The giant opponent swings his heavy chains around the arena with terrifying speed. The worried companions watch in fear because the fierce mercenary leaves absolutely no opening for an easy counterattack. Debris flies as the massive weapon crashes down while the young warrior struggles to find an escape route. Deciding to put on a good show before forfeiting, the boy stomps his foot and prepares to draw his shiny blade. A massive wave of dust suddenly erupts across the wooden stage and completely blocks everyone's view. The giant mercenary gets totally confused when his opponent suddenly vanishes into the thick gray cloud. The entire audience covers their faces while wondering what is actually happening in the middle of the arena. Moving through the shadows of the dust, the young hero prepares to finish this chaotic match. The smoke clears, and the hero is shocked to find himself alive while sticking out of a giant hole in the wooden stage. The massive mercenary looks down in absolute awe and believes his rival broke the floorboards on purpose to block the strike. Meanwhile, the terrified protagonist realizes his own heavy stomp accidentally shattered the solid oak floor. Dropping his heavy weapon to the ground, the giant fighter loudly admits his complete defeat in front of the entire crowd. The young warrior stands completely frozen in his hole, while the massive crowd of spectators begins cheering his name. His proud companions watch in amazement and praise him for turning the wooden stage itself into a deadly shield. A nearby elder remarks that the incredible rumor about his legendary master must be absolutely true. Looking at his defeated opponent, the young man slowly tries to climb out of the broken floor to end this crazy match. Sweating profusely, the young man silently hopes that he will never have to cross paths with that terrifying monster ever again. Meanwhile, the crowd continues to cheer loudly while looking down at the giant crater and the cracked stone floor below the stage.